Nisei Monogatari is fundamentally a story about fakes, with its first arc focusing on a fake hero and a fake villain, though what is fake and what is real in the end doesn't matter all that much. It is instead how one is seen that is important. And so in the second arc of this part we are faced with not a fake hero but a fake sister, and Araki is faced with the dilemma that is Skii. Is she his sister or a fake? So if that sounds interesting to you, then strap in for the 9th video in the Monogatari arc analysis series, where we will explore the beauty that is Nisei Monogatari's Skii Phoenix. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell. Anyway, on with the video. The arc opens with a discussion on the true identity of Araki Skii, and although not that much of substance is revealed to us, there is a few things to take note of. For example, how in this collection of panels her appearance is different in each one. There is little consistency to how she is presented, almost as if she as a person is not consistent. There's also a very large amount of past footage being used, something not that common in Monogatari, but here we see many scenes from the previous arc. And although there is a couple ways to interpret this, the one my mind tends to lean towards is that this represents how she does not change. As well, Araki is describing her present attributes, but instead of visuals of the present Skii, it is images of the past, with a nice grey filter to assure us that this is the past we're looking at. And this may be to say that it's almost as if she is the same as she was back then. She is the same no matter what time frame we look at. And then we end the opening monologue with the fact she is immortal. The following scene is of Araki studying, only to be interrupted by his bigger little sister, Karen, and upon her arrival we see no visual of her, because this arc is of course from Araki's perspective. She has to physically make him look at her, and the moment he does, his interest is captured as she is wearing a skirt. A moment which, as we all know, leads into the infamous toothbrush scene, but we will save that can of brushes for its own section later in the video. But I will quickly point out how Karen blames Araki for her justice ways, aka he is once again the root of his own problems. Anyway, all I'll say about this scene is that as a result of the brushing, Araki agrees to introduce Karen to Kanbaru, which leads us into the pair leaving to enact such an introduction. Araki walks on his feet, Karen on her hands, this being quite a nice way of showing the two live in different worlds. This I believe being foreshadowing for the later reveal of Skihi's identity, where Araki is forced to realise the truth of his sister, the reality of the situation, whereas Karen is in the dark about the true horror of their family situation, and so can walk along without a care in the world, represented by her childish handstands. What follows is Karen's super smart way of always winning at rock paper scissors, aka cheating by going first. Although I will agree this is basically a purely comedy scene, if I was to drag some meaning out of it, the fact Karen's plan is to go first before her opponent can react is a great example of her hit first, ask questions later mindset, and the fact she doesn't even understand why this wouldn't work, again fits with her general approach to life. Reminding me of her storming into Kaiki's office in the previous arc, with no plan beyond decking him in the face. Due to her cheating, Araki gets the pleasure of being given a piggyback by Karen. As he points out himself, this is very much a role reversal, usually the man does the carrying, which could be a statement on the general idea that becomes way more important near the arc's climax, that what others think is normal or acceptable is not important compared to what you want, especially when it comes to family, as we will see in the climax of this arc. Others may think that this piggyback should be the other way around, but as long as Araki and Karen have the resolve to do things a different way, then so be it. However, since it's in the way, Karen proceeds to cut off her ponytail with her house keys and then chuck it in a bin. Now if you've seen my video on why Monogatari characters cut their hair, you know that I view the various moments of characters changing their hairstyles as very important moments, and the fact this one comes out of nowhere and seems to hold no greater value, I believe is of course by design. Because in general, a girl cutting off their hair is a sign of great change, with each character's hair cutting moment happening in correspondence to a big change in their character. However, Karen doesn't undergo a big change in Karen B. Sure, she learns the general lesson that it's fine to be a fake if you accept it, that you can be happy as long as you acknowledge the truth, but the Karen at the end of the arc is basically the same as the one at the start, because of course Karen didn't need to change, hence her cutting her hair doesn't come with this big character moment, and as such is treated with no fanfare, the hair being rendered just trash. This whole moment then almost serving as Nisho Ishin poking fun at his own tropes. Though another way to look at it is that she cuts the hair off for Araki's sake, as it was in the way, basically reflecting her respect for her brother which has grown due to Karen B. She will happily cut off something she'd been growing since elementary school if it is for his sake. And in general, her wanting to carry him may speak to her desire to be of use to him, that having learned from her actions in the past arc does not want to be merely protected by her big brother, she wants to be like him to help others. and when she does give him a piggyback ride, he is scared that it is too high, maybe a statement on his lacking in maturity, as even if it's not as big a theme in this arc than Karen B, Araki's maturity, what it means to be an adult, is still relevant. Then we get the introduction of Kaganue, stood atop a mailbox. Now Kaganue in general is a bit of a parallel to Karen. Like how Karen walks upon walls, so does Kaganue. Like how Karen uses her fists to exercise justice, so does Kaganue. Kaganue then in a way will act to demonstrate the most extreme version of justice Araki had already argued was fake back in Karen B. However, unlike Karen who lacked the conviction to be real, Kaganue had strength both in body and mind, to impart her justice on the world without challenge. And like Karen, she has the power to take responsibility for her actions. Unlike Karen, a little sister, she is a big sister. When Kaganue asks for directions to Eiko Cram School, he is forced to call Hanikawa, as because this is Araki and he only focuses on what he wants, he somehow was oblivious to the fact the cram school he spent a bloody lot of time in bears the name of Eiko. Or if you really want to push the idea of Araki's obfuscation, his mind purposely chose to omit those details so he'd have an excuse to talk to Hanikawa. Also, nothing to really say about this scene, but I love it a lot and I am so sad we've yet to have an extended scene of these two together. In the subsequent scene of Hachikuji and Araki, he claims he is an adult, which very loosely ties into his growing maturity across Nissin Monogatari, but I wouldn't read too much into this. Best Girl made her first appearance, I said with a posed look. And the whole feel of the scene changes. Until now the arc has been pretty light, but now the tone changes. Ononeke's eyes cast in shadow, almost as if to say she's looking at the dark side of the world. She is seeing the dark truth of the arc, that Skii is a monster. And in this long shot, we see Araki standing fully in the light and Ononoke right on the border between light and dark, almost as if the information she will soon impart on him is what drags him across this border, or how she as a specialist stands on the border between the real world and the world of oddities. Or it could even represent how it's unclear if she is good or bad, compounding on Karen's earlier comment that she didn't know if Kaganue was good or evil. Or, because things keep popping into my head, her face being half covered in shadow and her body stood between light and dark, could represent the general duality of her character, in the same way as her catchphrase being accompanied by an expressionless, far from posed face. But Ononoke really does not get much in the way of exploration within this arc, so I will save any speculation on what her not so posed look represents to her character for an arc analysis down the line. What is of note though is after Araki gives her directions, she turns and heads back into the shadows, not into the light. This could represent how she is going off to deal with Skii as an oddity, the dark truth of the matter. Or maybe how in order to stop her, Araki must too follow her into the shadows, exposing himself to the dark truth of Skihi's identity. Or could simply be to show she belongs to the world of oddities and not those of humans, since the sun being the thing that kills vampires, the strongest of all oddities, generally represents reality and connections within the story. See my Kiyomi Vap analysis for details on that. And as such, the darkness represents the opposite of all these, aka the lonely world of oddities. Extrapolating off this might explain why Tsukihi's name includes the words Tsukihi, which means moon, as her true nature is an odyssey, and night is the world of oddities, with the moon itself often being representative of oddities as a whole. And this may be a real reach, but next time we see Araki, he is walking into his bedroom within the shadows, with the whole house cast in shadow, a possible sign of the dark secrets that fall over this household, one Araki is soon to realise. Shinobu goes on to trick both us and Araki, bigging up that she is going to reveal the big secret of the arc, only for it to be about Mr. Donut, which could be to prepare us for the fact that this true big secret, Ski's identity, may seem big at first, but is actually quite mundane and not really all that big a deal. We get one of our first actual interactions with the namesake of this arc, Tsukihi. Here we get a very interesting line from Tsukihi, where she comments on how Karen, when she gets into something, stops paying attention to her surroundings. A possible point of contrast between the two sisters, as by definition, all Tsukihi is doing is imitating her surroundings. She is unable to purely focus on one thing, as she is inherently reactionary. This being built upon where she says she doesn't like justice as much as Karen, that she cannot form a clear inner image of it. Unlike her two siblings, she does not have a vision of justice to call her own. She is once again reactionary. She is just imitating what her siblings do, and they both love justice, so she must as well. To fit in is to share views. Karen's blood and soul may be justice, but Skii's aren't, because they are prepared to change at any time. She puts faith in Karen and Araki's justice. Basically, she follows her example without ever forming any ideals of her own. As she says, if Karen didn't believe so strongly in it, she wouldn't put any stock in vague ideas like justice. It is only because Karen can create such vivid images of justice that Skii can imitate it. She can't copy what she can't see. She full on agrees with Araki that her justice is fake, but it's fake in a distinctly different way to Karen's. Karen does it for others, she does it because of others' effect on her. She is too easily influenced by others, but she is acutely aware of all this. That is to say that even though the root cause of all this mimicry is her own oddity nature, she herself is not oblivious to it. All she is in the dark about is that she is a bird. Beyond that, she is aware of what that entails, and as such is acutely aware of her own self despite not understanding what she is. Keep this in mind as it will be important later on when discussing the actual implications of her identity being revealed. The point of this conversation between the two siblings comes to a head when Skii suggests the Fire Sisters may disband. The reason being, she is seeing less of Karen. Maybe a show of maturity and growth on Karen's end, making Skii feel left behind in the same way she felt about Araki growing up in the past arc. But because she is seeing less of Karen, she is being affected by her justice less and so is imitating other people instead. Hence her passion for justice has wavered. Now we may give Araki a lot of flack for being oblivious as hell, but some gears were turning in his head, hence why he assaults and undresses his sister, so we can examine a scar on her body, or well, an area of her body that should have had a scar. A bit of obvious foreshadowing to her supernatural ability to regenerate. We finally get to good old Mr. Donut and are treated to something even sweeter than a flocky cho, a scene with Kaiki. This scene here with Kaiki is just incredible, for so many reasons. The simple fact the big bad of the previous arc is just sat there eating a donut is so jarring, and really speaks to the truth of Kaiki. As you know, a normal ass man. He may do some bad things, but it's not like he spends every waking hour scamming kids out of lunch money. He is still just a guy, and so is it that weird to see him chilling in a donut shop? This really helps to frame the truth of him beyond how Araki saw him and Karen be, as even for Araki, seeing this man as an embodiment of evil sat eating a donut is a little too much of a stretch. In this scene, Kaiki sees an opportunity to make some money, gives Araki a tinge of truth and a load of lies, and then leaves town. And well, to me, this scene sums up the essence of Kaiki's character. He will do anything for a quick buck, but that's it. He's just a normal greedy man. And so his final scene in Nisei Monogatari is an even bigger anticlimax than the ending of Karen B. No conflict, no danger, just a simple transaction. The takeaway from the scene for Araki though is that Kaganue is a specialist in immortal oddities, and as such due to Kaiki's half-truths believes he is their target. As he rides home, we now see his house cast in light, not shadows, because the time for the dark truth to be brought to light has arrived. Mononoke is repeatedly pressing the doorbell, as they are not here to see Araki, they are here for someone else. And the moment that person opens the door, Skii is rendered to a pair of legs. Araki naturally flies off the handle, but is easily put down by Kaganue, one who as said is truly strong. As Mononoke explains, Skii is not actually his sister, but an oddity, the Shidenotori, the dying bird. Thanks to Shinobu's bluffs, they leave for the moment, and because Kaganue at heart is a good person who cares about humans a lot, she does agree that killing Skii in front of Araki is in poor taste. In fact, her dislike for oddities very much stems from her love of humans, hence why an oddity masquerading as a human disgusts her so much. But even if they retreat for now, the two-man cell states they will return tomorrow to finish things. This is not a problem that can be avoided. Araki must take action if he wants to protect his sister. And as they leave, Kaganue explains what I already said earlier, that they view themselves as the good guys, and the oddity parasitizing a human family as evil. They are heroes of justice. Now heading into the final episode, we get an explanation of the Shidenotori. It is an immortal bird, an immortal cuckoo bird, that upon death seeks out a human's womb, replacing the child within. It then grows up in that human family, imitating its new family to become a human in all the ways that matter. The bird isn't even aware that it is a bird, and as such the perfect mimic is born. The victim of an oddity in this situation is not Skii, but Araki's mother. She was possessed by the bird and had her child replaced by it. However, beyond that, the oddity does no harm. Its only crime is of being a fake. With the front of the house busted open, Araki stood guard, so to speak, until Karen arrived home. Noticed all the birds flocking around the house. It'd be impossible to miss them, like how it is now impossible for Araki to look at his sister and not see a bird. Now before heading off to confront Kaganue, Araki asks his bigger little sister a question. Would she die for him? Which she obviously says yes to. And then he asks the same about Skii, to which she also says yes. The significance of this being that Karen views both him and Skii the same. They are both her precious siblings, oddity or not, and this gives Araki the resolve to agree that bird or not, Skii is no less his sister. So to really make sure, he kisses her, because in his own words, he felt nothing from it. It wasn't exciting and he didn't enjoy it, just how a kiss for your sister should be. She really is his sister. No matter the nitty gritty circumstances, from the moment she was born, from the moment she was Araki Skii, she was already the younger sister of Karen and Kayomi. That is and will always be true, and as such with that all put to rest, the flock of birds leave, because Araki no longer cares about birds. It's such an insignificant detail to him now. When he looks at Skii, he doesn't see a bird, he just sees his sister. He goes to fight Kaganue, the reason? He has none. Because when it comes to family, is there any need for fancy reasons and motives? To which Shinobu replies with the word Tsukihi. In other words, she is remembering the name of a human. This is not only a massive moment of growth for Shinobu and a testament to her and Araki's relationship, but also in a way shows how Shinobu really has become family to Araki, and so by extension, Skii is her family too. Which might be why when she drinks Araki's blood and ages up to her teenage form, she almost resembles Karen, because isn't it only natural to look like your family? Before the fighting happens, we get the hilarious reveal that the one to inform Kaganue about Skii was none other than Kaiki. Not anything really to add, it just amuses me a lot. And Kaganue is stood upon not the many desks around the place, but the tree instead. Maybe to show how she and Oshino view things differently, not standing on the same plane. Anyway, the fight commences with Araki saying he is fighting for his sister, and Kaganue replies she is a fake. Their positions here are clear as day. Araki sees Skii as his sister, worth protecting, oddity or not, and Kaganue sees her as a fake, deceiving a family and so must be exterminated. She asks if he can truly love her the same knowing her true nature, and he of course can. The fact she is an oddity is not enough to change the fact she is his sister. She brings up the point that even if he is okay with it, what about his family? Her compassion seems way more dedicated at his poor mother, the victim of an oddity, than Araki himself. Her love for people makes her reject Skii almost instinctually. And even so, she still shows compassion to Skii, bringing up how if she was to learn of her own identity, could she carry on as a happy teenage girl? She even throws some shade at Araki, saying what if Skii used her power to become some immortal hero of justice? The general point she is making here is that it's fine for him to have his opinions and know what he thinks is right, but she believes it is wrong for him to force those beliefs onto others. After pummeling him to a bloody pulp, Kaganue asks Shinobu if she wants to have a final round, but Shinobu replies that her master has yet to lose to her. Araki has not conceded to her words or her fists. He acknowledges she is a good guy and that he may be evil, but says he doesn't care as that has nothing to do with right or wrong. They are his family. He can lie to them, deceive them, force his own ideals on them. But so what? He can do that because they are family. Family aren't just strangers, they are family. And to this declaration, Kaganue brings up the theory of fundamental evil. That we are all born evil, that is our true nature, and as such to be good we must make a deliberate act of it. To be good and honest is to be a fake, it is to betray your inherent nature, it is hypocrisy. But by doing so, by becoming a fake, you become greater, you become good. It's like what Kaiki says, a fake is more valuable than the real thing, because in its deliberate attempt to become real, it's more real than the real thing. Araki doesn't get Kaganue to change her views on Skii, but he does manage to convince her not to act on her justice. In this confrontation between the two, the idea of forcing ideals on people is brought up, which is quite interesting in relation to Kaganue. Although you could say she is forcing her ideals, her notion of justice onto people, since she believes her justice to be the true justice, in her mind then her ideals are always right. Another way to look at it though is that she is not forcing her ideals on anyone, she is just acting on them. And anyone who opposes her is stepping towards her ideals of their own volition. In that line of thinking, she never forces her ideals on anyone, she just acts without concern for any other opinions. And is that not the essence of a true unbending absolute justice? It's why in this confrontation Araki never challenges Kaganue's justice, he instead agrees with it. He accepts that his sister is evil, that being a fake and a monster is evil, and then resolves to take all that evil onto himself. Because like how she believes there is a way life should be lived, he believes there is a way family should be. It took a bloody brawl for Araki to finally get his point across to Kaganue. He showed her that his ideals aren't so flimsy they can be beaten out of him. His love for his sister is as absolute as her views on justice. This is why I believe she left willingly after their exchange, even after beating him to an inch of his life, because even at that point his views did not change, they are absolute. But still, I must stress he doesn't change her views on justice and his sister, because Kagenue's opinions, her justice cannot change, and this is because of her belief in universal absolutism. But the point is that he didn't have to change them. That was never his intention. He just wanted to protect his sister, which is what he did. We must remember though that even if she is an antagonist, Kagenue is not a villain. She only is doing all this because of her care for others, because she is trying to save her family from the deception of an oddity. She is trying to squash evil. She is a self-confessed good guy. She may want to exterminate an oddity, but that is all it is. And when faced with someone with just as strong ideals as her, she lets him off. Maybe this whole thing was a test to see if he really is worthy of taking on the burden of his sister. Who knows? After all, she leaves by reciting Unlimited Rulebook, a rulebook filled mostly with exceptions. What is important though is that she acknowledges Araki as a human, this bringing the ideas first mentioned in Karen B full circle. The worries Araki had about his vampirism, but he was worried for nothing, as even one who sees all oddities as evil sees him as nothing more than a human. He never fought to kill in that fight. He fights like a normal old human, because much like Kaiki, that's all he is. Just a regular old guy. He goes home and his sister says welcome home, just as a family should. Oh, and he says he will introduce her to Senjigahara, which trust me is more important than you'd think, but you gotta wait till the next video where we discuss Nisan Monogatari as a whole to hear about that. But okay, as nice as all that was, I know what you've all been waiting for. Yes, let's talk about the toothbrush scene, but before that we have to explore the beauty that is. Platinum Disco, the best opening in all of Monogatari, according to you all. The YouTube polls do not lie. And although, please don't hurt me, I don't rank it as highly as most people do, it's still a phenomenal opening. The title of the opening is obviously in reference to Skihi's catchphrase, Platinum Mad, but the disco part of the name is a bit more up to interpretation. Disco as a whole is quite old school, being seen as a staple of the 70s long before Skihi's time, so maybe this references how her true identity is an immortal bird, one that lived through these past times. Disco dancing is also defined by repetitive movements, swaying side to side and whatnot. This repetitiveness could then mirror how Skihi's life is so repetitive. But okay, onto the opening itself. It starts with Skihi dancing, expect a lot of that, with us soon seeing two Skihis dancing. This I think being a clear reference to the fact she is a fake, a copy, a mimic. So you can see one of them as the true Skihi and the other as the fake Skihi, if you will. But both dance in unison as she is a perfect copy and indistinguishable fake. In the background, notice Araki walking covered in shadow. Now by the end of the arc, Araki allows himself to become a monster for her sake, so she can go unhappy. This might be what this represents. He is cast in shadow as he knows the truth and has become a monster to protect her. He is in the background because this does not affect her. Her dancing represents her being blissfully unaware of her true identity, while he suffers in the background, but he is happy regardless as he gets to watch her be happy. After this dancing, the two Skihis fuse into one, as real or fake she is still just Skihi. We get two Skihis once again, but one is smaller and inverted. Maybe this represents the slight imperfection in her mimicry that Kagenue, or well, technically Kaiki, saw through, or could be how Araki realised she was a fake. It's up to interpretation. Next we see her alone, and slightly faded. Maybe this indicates her true threat as nothing of actual danger, or maybe it's her in a weakened state, like after being unlimited rulebooked, and since that cuts her in two, maybe that's why there's only one Skihi and not two. Afterwards she is caught up in a storm of hands. My take on this is that this represents how Skihi is always passive to the actions around her, just going with the flow. She next is sat inside her brother's mouth. This could reference the kiss maybe, or how the Shide no Tori grows inside a human body, but more likely is to show how Araki protected her from Kagenue, using not actions but his words. It was his defiant speech that made Kagenue retreat, so she is safe behind his words, so inside his mouth. Following, she looks up at the screen while Araki watches in the background. He is always keeping an eye on her, but she is looking the other way as she doesn't even realise. We see the moon, but it very much resembles an egg, also representing the one the Shide no Tori laid in Araki's mother. And then some legs moving back and forth, almost like a metronome or clock hands. Keep these in mind for a moment. Skihi then dances while changing her looks, both in hairstyle and outfit, this of course representing her nature as a mimicking bird, always changing to mimic her surroundings. The next scene is packed full of meaning. For one, the two Skihis are rocking back and forth much like her legs had before. This reminds me of a clock, like for example a cuckoo clock. Clocks go round and round, back and forth forever, never changing it up. Much like how the Shii no Tori lives forever, going through one life after another, never changing. Two mirrored birds flap next to her, pretty self-explanatory, and behind them is Araki covering his eye with a hand, this being him being in the dark about Skihi's identity, but then he uncovers his eye as he learns the truth. But he will protect her even so, hence why she is once again inside his mouth, protected by his words. And she continues to dance looking up, showing she is oblivious to his actions to protect her. When he shuts his mouth, she ends up split in two, this being a reference to when Ononoke blows off her top with unlimited rulebook. Yet even in half she continues to dance, because even after dying she is still unaware. She then explodes into a flock of birds, revealing the image of the Shii no Tori, again pretty self-explanatory. The whole opening's sepia tone likely being another reference to her great age, given her immortal nature. It's much like how she wears very old school traditional Japanese clothes, because again she has been alive for much of the past. In terms of the lyrics of the song, they tell of Skii stepping out into a so-called platinum world, and her heart starts beating when she lays eyes on the back of someone under the moonlight, with her going to explain that even though she is fickle about both changing and unchanging things, she will dedicate eternity to this person. However, even though she is happy, she will soon turn to sad, leaving her to question why she is so discontent. Now in terms of who she is talking about, could be her boyfriend, but I think it's too simple an answer. Considering Skihi's name includes the kanji for moon, it could well be that this person she is singing about is herself, almost as if this is telling of her being reborn into this world, now named after the moon, but that does seem like a bit of a stretch. Whatever the case, these lyrics really get across Skihi's reactionary nature, going from platinum happy to platinum sad, and her feelings towards things both changing and unchanging. And well, the overall feel of the song is, well, nostalgic, though that could just be me, and that too, I feel, plays well into Skii as a character. Okay people, Toothbrush Time. Now I know I am the guy that will defend the artistic intent behind Koyomi Vamp's panty scenes and Karen B's weird Sengoku flirt session, but even I find a limit with the toothbrush scene. As I think in terms of deeper character writing, there isn't all that much here, at least that's the limit of my interpretation of the scene. But even if from a writing point of view I don't think this scene is anything that special, from another point of view I think it is simply spectacular. So let me explain. Now inherently the act of brushing someone's teeth is not sexual, and in a way nothing in this scene is actually sexual. However, due to the way the scene is directed and presented, we cannot help but find ourselves shocked by this scene. Now Nisa Monogatari as a whole presents its fan service in an extremely interesting way, as everything is purposeful. Sengoku is actively trying to seduce Araki. Shinobu does not give a shit she is naked, so the scene doesn't treat her naked body any differently than if she was clothed. And the toothbrush scene, despite being not sexual in the slightest, is warped into the monster of a scene we are presented with due to the idea of intimacy. Karen's goal in this scene is to get Araki to introduce her to Kambaru, and Araki's is to make that not happen. Simple enough. Karen wears Skihi's clothes, a deliberate decision to throw Araki off guard, so to speak. Karen in general is very androgynous. Her clothes usually don't scream anything effeminate, neither do her actions. Yet here she is actively pushing against that image, but it doesn't exactly fit. They aren't her own clothes, and they physically don't fit. These are all points of vulnerability for Karen, and as such impose an image on her, backed up by her words I might add, of an innocent and attractive young girl. She is actively preying upon her brother to make him lower his guards, all in the aim of getting what she wants. It's effectively the same as what Sengoku did. The camera isn't sexualizing her, she is actively sexualizing herself. And so Araki, to fight back, introduces this toothbrushing game. He intends to make her uncomfortable so he gets what he wants. In a way, this scene is like the reverse of fanservice. Fanservice takes a character and strips them down to just an object of arousal, whereas in this scene the characters are actively imposing a sexual atmosphere onto a normal situation. The camera isn't sexualizing them, they are sexualizing the situation itself, and by doing so they bring out a comedy that cannot be achieved through conventional means. The intimacy showed in this scene is what makes it so effective. There is complete transparency between the two, complete honesty. And because we understand that, we can empathise with both of them, and hence when they feel erotic, we do too. There is no need for anything sexual to actually occur, because we know the characters view the situation as erotic. It's a testament to the skill of Nisho Ishin as a writer, and Shaft as an animation studio, that this scene works as well as it does. It makes us feel just as involved in the act as the characters. It includes us in the intimacy. It is a truly outrageous scene, I will not disagree, but even so I feel no scene better shows the lengths this series will go through to depict something that no one was asking for, but doing it in a way we cannot get enough of. Now, as explained, the central idea of this arc is the value of a fake. The two sides of the argument around this being our protagonist Araki and our antagonist Kaganue. Araki's view is that a fake that is indistinguishable from the real thing should be viewed as just that, the real thing. Skii being real or fake had no impact on him nor his family. The fact they had never noticed before was a testament to the fact that her identity had no bearing on her place in their family. Skii played the perfect human so well that it came to a point where it seemed pointless to even question her humanity. A fake that is so good that the question of its authenticity never arises. The only issue that arises from it is that Araki must now protect her from those who view her as a fake and want to hurt her. Kaganue's view though is that a fake is not authentic, that it is inherently dishonest and as such should be exposed. Her stance on oddities is very firm, it's good or bad, not anywhere near as black and white as someone like Karen may see it, but her views are absolute, all on their own. Much like Karen, she is a hero of justice, but unlike Karen, she has the strength, both literal and in conviction, to impose her justice on the world and take responsibility for the consequences. The line between human and oddity, between a real human and a fake human, cannot become muddled. That is the black and white line she draws, the line she acts upon as a hero of justice. However, even if she pushes her ideals on the world, they still remain no one's ideals but her own. Unlike Araki, who in Kaganue's eyes is forcing his own ideals onto his family by allowing a fake to live among them, they get no say in the matter. That is what Kaganue explained. But again, this brings us back to Araki's view, that being that they don't need to know. What you don't know won't hurt you. I can take it all onto myself. And considering Skii herself doesn't even know the truth of her own identity, then the only one being affected by her being a fake is Araki, the man who was resolved to take the burden of the truth. Much like how he did not care if Karen was a fake hero as long as she didn't put herself in danger, he does not care if Skii was a fake human as long as she was the same little sister he loves. Both these characters and their opposing views on the situation are valid. Both at the end of the day are bringing their own view of justice, their own conviction, into the situation. In the end, Araki wins out. But that isn't to say he is right and Kaganue was wrong. As much like how when it comes to Skii, the line between fake and real becomes blurred. And the same can be said for right and wrong. What I will say though is that Araki standing up to Kaganue, putting his life on the line for his own conviction, his own love for his sister, links back to the general ideas of maturity laid out in Karen B. This is Araki showing he is on the path to an adult. This is him handling a situation against a foe he cannot hope to beat physically, almost like a reverse of Karen's interaction with Kaiki, an opponent she could beat physically, but not in any way that counts. Him winning through his conviction, not through punches and kicks, is us being shown why he had the right to preach to Karen in the prior arc, because although he is still far from a true adult, given he had to rely on his vampiric nature, the personification of his immaturity, he has taken the first step to solve problems as an adult, which we must commend him for. Going into this video, I was under the impression that Skii Phoenix did not hold a candle to Karen B. Although I still hold the former arc of Nisei Monogatari in a higher standing than its latter arc, I think I treated this arc too harshly, as not only does it build upon the themes of Karen B in an interesting way, but it brings the entire story of Nisei Monogatari to a heartfelt and purposeful conclusion. At its heart, Monogatari is a story about Araki Kayomi, of him coming of age and saving himself. And Nisei Monogatari is yet another important step in our protagonist's journey to such a conclusion, where he proves not only his conviction, but proves he is human. That he will do whatever it takes for his family, that he is fine with being evil, being a fake, if it means his sisters stay happy. I'd argue this is the first time he is truly fighting to save someone else, though that is obviously a controversial opinion. At the end of the day though, he thinks Skii is his sister, and that is all that matters. The takeaway of the arc being that who gives a shit if you're a fake, it's how others view you that really matters. And if they don't think you're a fake, then who cares if you are really authentic? I mean, if fundamental evil is real, then every decent person out there, both you and me, well, we are all fakes too. But I don't know about you, but personally, I feel pretty loved by my friends, my family, and of course you guys who watch these videos. So who gives a shit if I'm a fake because people still like me regardless? And as long as people like me, then I can like me too. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay subscribed, as in the next Monogatari arc analysis video, we will be looking at Nisei Monogatari as a whole, and you don't want to miss that. And if you want to support this channel even further, then perhaps pledge to my Patreon, or consider becoming a channel member so you can get your name at the end of the video, like Hikari Desu, Rinjak9696, Mr. Sputum, and Matthias Rowett. So with all that said and done, I have been SephTheSin, the deadly sin of geek, and I'm signing out. Stay safe, everyone.